This is Back to Back.
Yo, what's up, back-to-backers? This is Willy Joy. Welcome to Back to Back. This is my podcast. How are you guys doing? How's everybody? Happy Halloween. We got a spooky episode for you today. A terrifying, eerie episode. This couldn't have worked out better. My guest on the show is Funtcase. What could be more perfect for Halloween? We met up in LA. He was just finishing up his first ever headline American tour. That's a big moment for any DJ. And he's coming back to the States in December as support on the Snails Shell tour, which is going to be, one of the biggest bass music tours this year. So if that's swinging through your city, do not miss that show. Don't miss Funtcase. And shout out to Snails, good friend. I love you, Snails. Before we get into that, let's do a little business up top. This week, I actually got to do something pretty fun. I was asked to be a guest on the EDM Prod podcast. If you don't know, the EDM Prod podcast is, if you like this one, you'll like that one. It's another podcast about dance music, talking to the people who make it, getting in their heads. A lot of it is, more on the technical side of production, although the episode I just did, we didn't actually get too heavy into the production. We talked more about kind of strategies for starting off and common pitfalls, ways to accelerate your workflow, just kind of general life hacking shit. And it was really fun. I had an awesome time doing it. If you want to check out my episode, it should be out by the time you're hearing this. If not, it'll be out in the next 24 hours. You go to edmprod.com/podcast. That's edmprod.com/podcast. And check out a lot of the other episodes, too. He's done a lot. Really great content, and I had a great time being on there. So if you want to learn a little bit more about me, go check that out. And if you want to talk to me directly, I'm always down. Love to talk to you guys. You can hit me on all social media at Willy Joy, and you can email me at backtobackpod@gmail.com. A lot of times on the show, people will write in with questions. Sometimes I like to read those questions on the air. Let's run one of those down real quick. Today's question is from Oliver. Oliver says, "Hey, Willy, I love your podcast. Thank you. Quick introduction. I'm 22, and I've been a producer for 8 years and a DJ for 9. Damn, you started DJing when you were 13? You're a young-ass DJ. And I've played a few big events, but I want to try to spread the music that I'm into to more people. I'm from Denmark, and the musical culture here is a little bit behind the American culture as far as dance music goes. Our clubs usually play mostly top 40. I'm missing the electronic scene, so I want to try and start something myself. I recently went to an event in my town that was advertised as being an EDM event, and while the DJ sets were great, something was missing. The DJs would play a set they enjoyed, but the audience was not ready for it. There was a hip-hop DJ on early, and people were digging that, but when the electronic DJs started playing, people just went outside to drink and talk. So basically, he's asking for some pointers about building a scene in his area out in Denmark. He says the culture here is heavily focused on drinking, sadly, and that's something to consider as well. And what tips would you give to someone trying to create an event to spread the love for electronic music?" Well, big ups to you, man. Your head's already in the right place. If the scene is missing something, if you want something, you have to build it yourself. That's absolutely the right way to go. I wouldn't get too down on your local culture. You say it's heavily focused on drinking. Man, the American club culture could not be more heavily focused on drinking. I think that's pretty universal. And, there's ways around it. If dance music, if EDM isn't the popular sound where you live, you can't just will it into being that. So I think you have to limit your expectations and really just find the like-minded people in your community. There should be, some message boards. Try going on Reddit, poke around on Facebook. there will definitely be people who are into the same kind of music as you. And it's really all about finding them and bringing them in. And if that means that you just throw a club night for 50 people, for 100 people, and that's it, that's great as long as everyone's on the same page and having fun. If you do that for a few weeks in a row, it'll start to build on its own. Keep it small. Don't try to go into a giant venue. Don't try to take over a hugely successful club night. But just find a space where you and your friends and the people who love that music can all come together. And man, I was trying to remember. I'm not sure if I've ever played a show in Copenhagen, but I've definitely been there. It's a beautiful place you live, man. And I think once you start really putting yourself out there and really connecting with that community, you'll find there's more like minded people than you think. The internet is your friend. Your people are out there. Go find them. It's interesting. I've actually been thinking about dance music in Europe a lot in the last couple weeks. It was just ADE conference out in Amsterdam. Big dance music conference for the Europeans. And a lot of Americans go out there to play shows and to network and to give talks and all of that too. And, as part of that, a well-timed DJ Mag also put out their top 100 DJs list that they put out every year. And, every year, it's such a stupid thing to do. It's such a weird list that has no relevance to the real world. It makes money for the people who rank highly on it, but it's just a weird, bizarre, not rooted in reality thing that happens every year. And yet every year, everybody, myself included, we all fall for it a little bit. Everyone looks at the list. A lot of people complain or make fun of the list. All of that. I didn't even say anything this year, although I guess I'm saying it now, but I don't want to feed into it too much. I think those kind of lists, those popularity contests are just the worst kind of journalism or interaction with the dance music community. It's just pitting people against each other, ranking people who have nothing to do with each other. You guys already know this. I feel like everybody knows those rankings are stupid, but yeah, I just wanted to say something because those rankings do really affect a person's standing in Europe a lot more. I think it can get you a lot more bookings. Probably the rankings are based more on European tastes, but then I don't even know who makes those fucking things. All right, so that being said, let's get into this conversation with the boy from the UK, Funtcase. Man, this was really fun. I'd never met Funtcase before. We didn't know each other at all. Met each other for the first time, hit it off right away. We ended up finding out that we had really similar backgrounds, despite the fact that he's from a small town in the UK and I'm from a large town in the Midwest. A lot of similarities, a lot of shared musical tastes. There's some differences, too. His mom is a DJ, which is the craziest shit I've ever heard and totally threw me off for about the first third of the interview because everything that I would normally ask someone was thrown into disarray. It's funny, you'll hear me kind of get flustered in the interview for a minute. But yeah, he was just such an interesting guy. It was really refreshing to talk to somebody not only from the UK, which is where dubstep was born, and to hear his perspective, but also to talk to somebody who loves the underground so much. And at a time when so much of dance music is going pop and becoming more mainstream, to talk to somebody who's so passionate about the underground sounds that they make and not compromising the integrity of those, and not switching up styles to be popular and just doing what he loves to do. I loved hearing that. That was really inspiring, really refreshing. Funny guy. He wears a mask. So, of course, we had to get him on Halloween. We talked about the mask. And, to hear him talk about it, too, the way he started was not calculated. It wasn't as a brand. I mean, he more or less says he started it kind of as a goof, as a joke. And just grew it from there because it resonated with people. And so I have a ton of respect for this guy. I liked his music before, and now that we got to know each other a little bit, I like it even more. So let's get into it right now. This is me and Funtcase. Back to back. Let's go. am I right in saying this is your first U.S. headline tour?
Officially, yeah. I've done headline tours before. Did one, I think it was last year, with the Dirty Phonics.
Yeah.
Called the Neckbreaker Tour. That was kind of like we both headlined that. And I've done a tour in 2012, I believe it was. It was called the Rage by the Pound Tour.
Right. I actually remember seeing that flyer.
Yeah, and that was arranged by Circle Management, my agency. And I headlined that, but it wasn't my tour. It was like their tour they were trying to push up and stuff.
Right.
But yeah, this is officially my focus tour.
Yeah, well, that's got to be a good feeling.
Yeah,
does it feel different?
I don't know. Yeah, kind of. I mean, it feels like most shows. I'm going to a show and I'm one of the headliners, but to be the main focus is like, it's almost like pressure.
Because then you know everyone there is there for you, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But you've been coming over here for, what, years and years and years, right?
We'll probably look, my first show here was Escape from Wonderland. I think that was 2011. So, it's in 6 years now. Which is actually crazy. Yeah, it makes me feel old.
Where are you from originally?
I'm from the south of the UK in a little beach town called Bournemouth.
And what was growing up there like? Was it very small town?
I mean, if you look in the grand scheme of like some American cities and stuff. But I mean, it's a town. It's a beach town. So yeah, it's not too big. But yeah, growing up there was just like, yeah, it was fun.
Was it fun? I mean, I feel like as an artist, either you have a great time in a small town and kind of you're able to do whatever you want and be creative and run around, or the other half hates it and wants to escape.
It's not land of opportunity. Let's put it that way. It's not like living in LA or anything.
Right.
But it's a place where there's a lot to do, and they're very cultural. They take on graffiti.
Oh, okay.
The council takes on graffiti, and they have graffiti projects everywhere. We've got skate parks everywhere. So yeah, it was thriving. And we've got really good venues there as well, and a really good scene, which has built over the years into a really, really strong steeple now. Everyone comes to our town and plays.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, it's good. It's pretty good.
So when you were a kid there, did you have pretty early exposure to music? Was it part of your life early on?
Yeah. Well, my mum's a DJ.
Really?
Well, is a DJ.
Wow.
Yeah, so I've been surrounded by that for since I can remember.
You never hear that. What kind of DJ did she?
She was like quite a well-known DJ in the sort of the local to the UK area.
Right.
And she was DJing at local clubs and some clubs outside of town.
Okay, so not even like a radio DJ. She was.
Clubs. Oh yeah, she was like fully in it. Yeah, she was. But she used to DJ happy hardcore before. There was the split from hardcore to jungle and drum and bass and hardcore again.
Right.
She went the jungle route and kind of lost her name. Someone superseded her name with their own version of it. But yeah.
That's crazy to hear, man. Happy Hardcore was the first thing I ever started DJing when I was like a little 16, 17-year-old.
Same, man, same, yeah.
Yeah, that's so wild.
Just messing around on my mum's vinyls.
Yeah. Me too, except my mom was not a DJ. And I hear that a lot. Yeah, and I had to order vinyl mostly from the UK. But yeah, that was a huge influence on me, especially the early breakbeat, the like early to mid 90s breakbeat hardcore stuff.
Yeah.
Still a huge influence on me.
Yeah, I still remember being dropped off and picked up from school by my mum in her orange Beetle, 1960s Beetle, and she would be playing like old Helter Skelter hardcore mixtapes out of it, and I'd be like, "Oh, mum, turn it off." But now I appreciate it because it's like,
when you were a kid, you still had the classic like, "Mom, that's not cool."
Oh yeah, most definitely. I didn't like electronic music. I mean, I didn't know what I liked at that age. I grew into liking like death metal and stuff.
Oh, okay.
That was like my first proper love.
Were you playing in bands?
Yeah, I was playing in bands from I'm going to say 15.
What were you playing?
I was a drummer from 14. And then 15, you sort of mess around in school practices, don't you?
Right.
Yeah, it just naturally turned into us playing whatever music we were really feeling at the time. So yeah.
Yeah, cool, man. This is eerily close because I was in metal bands all throughout my childhood too. It's getting a little spooky, but I guess how did electronic music come into your life other than your mom, or how did you start enjoying it outside of parental guidelines? It
was weird because I had really long hair down past my shoulders, and I was listening to only metal, and in my brain I was like, I'll only ever love metal because you're young and you like dedicated to it.
Well, and the metal scene is so much like that.
Yeah, exactly. I was like listening to Slipknot and Disturbed and all that lot, and I was just so into everything. And then that evolved into death metal, and I never assumed I would like the music.
Right.
But my mum actually had a radio show in a spare room in our house, and she was doing that constantly. And someone played. I've been listening to drum and bass like since the whole time of living there. Every single day someone would be coming over playing all these new vinyls they bought from the shop.
What an environment, man.
I know.
I'm trying to wrap my mind around it.
I know, it's so normal to me, though. But then there was one track that I walked past the room and I heard it, and I was like, whoa, what's this? And that was the one track that brought me in, and then I decided to learn how to mix just for fun.
Do you remember what song it was?
Yeah, it was Twisted Individual, and it was called Bandwagon Blues.
What a jam,
Yeah,
man.
it's a classic. It's a classic.
Yeah, I remember I heard that for the first time on one of Andy C's nightlife mixes that he put out.
It was so revolutionary because no one really messed with LFOs in that way. Like now it's the absolute norm, but that pretty much paved the way for drum and bass to have that sound. You know, he was the originator.
That's interesting. I didn't even really realize that because when I first heard that song, I was barely even producing it. You know, I couldn't even really analyze what they were doing.
Yeah,
but I just knew it sounded fucking crazy.
Yeah, because if you think about it, it was all the older stuff was either really basic jungle bass lines or you'd have the really intense ram stuff.
Right.
And nothing was like womps and wobbles, and that was really what Twisted Individual sort of slammed his, mark with.
Right.
And that turned into what we have today. So he's, you could say that he's the originator of why we're here.
Yeah, I never even thought about that, but I think you're right. That's actually really interesting.
Yeah, I don't think he gets enough credit for that. I mean, people who are into old drum and bass give him credit for being, one of the best from the original.
Right.
But like we don't realize, as say dubstep, for instance, that how important he might have been to what we do. So
Well, and in the U.S., I mean, drum and bass never fully got the footing that I think its fans wanted it to have.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, like. It's doing now. The scene's good now.
Oh yeah.
No, so everything's great, but yeah, it's just weird to think that how it's evolved so much. All the people that were important to drum and bass aren't as important anymore. So
right, yeah, it is strange how that evolves over time, and then you get a younger generation who's not even really aware of the originator. I mean, you see that in every music scene.
Yeah.
And then they're kids, so they don't care. You can try and tell them, but they don't care.
Yeah, they don't tend to go back to the history too much.
Right. Yeah.
But the ones who are absolutely full on dedicated will usually go back and find out where it's come from.
Yeah. Well, and I think another problem, as DJs, we want to educate and you want to play all the old jams, but the production values have also changed.
Yeah,
so much
hugely.
Over the
Yeah,
years.
it's weird to think that because I remember I used to listen to old Original Sin, like
Right.
when I was clubbing 18, 19, 20, going out and listening to say brand new Original Sin coming out. I used to think this was the heaviest thing I'd ever heard. Nothing's going to top that. And I listen now and I'm like, oh, it's actually really weak.
right,
oh,
yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, and just, the technology and the way tunes are able to just be crushed and compressed and, blasted out now. It's hard to play a song, even from, say, 5 years ago, next to a song that was made yesterday.
Yeah, you really can't. I mean, I've started playing old school sections in my dubstep sets now. I mean, on this tour specifically, but and you just... to play them next to each other is so night and day.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think that because dubstep was about bass weight, but it was never about, the sonic, the hits and the transients and everything that we really, make sure we do in all our tracks now. It's never about that. It was all about the bass weight. But yeah, it's so different. Everything's so clear, so much clarity, lots of mid presence and everything like that. So it's just like, it's completely night and day when you play them next to each other.
Yeah. It's just a strange. I mean, I'm glad it is that way. It's a fun time to be making music, but at the same time, I do sometimes just feel bad that all this old music is just kind of thrown in the garbage.
I
now.
mean, like even if you think about old Roscoe, like it was really simply produced and it had a pretty good presence to it, but. You play it now and like say Woo Boost it's still a great track, but there's no power to it. I mean, that's good for its time and it's good for listening, but if you try to play anything now and then drew Woo Boost, it just doesn't hold weight anymore.
Right,
so
yeah.
Is what it is.
So you're, 15, 16 years old. It's with your mom being a DJ, was there even ever a conversation about you having a more normal job or a more normal life, or was it kind of just whatever you wanted to do? She was supportive because she understood.
Yeah, I mean, she was always a very independent woman, so she was always trying to drill it into my head to make sure I looked after myself and had a job, had money, make sure I didn't struggle. But at those times, it was like you didn't want to work. And it was hard to find work anyway, really.
Is that right?
Yeah, and then just playing in bands constantly. So yeah, she was always trying to drill it in, but I was always playing in bands and trying to do what I could. And I was playing out in clubs every now and again, earning a little bit of money. So
okay. So when did you actually start DJing?
That's a good question. I'd probably say I would have started around 17, 18.
Okay.
I still remember the moment in my head exactly how I walked past and heard that track and how it went. I just don't remember the age or
Right.
the exact date or anything. So, yeah.
But so it was basically a switch flipped after you heard that.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that's pretty much exactly what happened. A switch just went, "What's this?" And that was the moment. That was literally the moment this electronic me existed.
It's so rare that you can really pinpoint it like that.
Thank you, Twisted.
Did you start trying to play shows or play out right away, or were you kind of just messing around for fun at first?
Yeah, it was a fun thing at first, but my mum was in a crew she made, and she wouldn't let me in it because she probably thought either wasn't good enough or whether. I was more the producer at that point.
Oh, so you were producing
I was
first.
producing at the same time. I mean, I first messed with production without realizing I liked doing it. I mean, I enjoyed the thing. It was music on the PlayStation. You remember that game?
Yeah, actually, I never really messed with it, but I do remember its
It was
existence.
just pre-loops that you mess around with and make your own tracks with. So
Right.
I used to mess with that all the time and try and recreate tracks I liked, but I never, in my wildest dreams, thought that I could turn it into a job, or even that I enjoyed it. Making music, it was more just playing around with the sounds.
Sure, yeah.
It never clicked on my head that I should probably make my own music.
Right,
It was just more like, wow, I like doing this. This is
Well,
fun.
I mean, that's a great entry point, right? As a video, if you look at it as a video game, which I mean, it still kind of is.
Yeah, in a sense.
In a way, but yeah, if it's presented to a kid that way, it's probably a lot less intimidating.
Yeah. I mean, I was messing around with that for a while, and then I was doing that while DJing, and then the DJing was just a constant thing, and eventually I found Reason. That sort of turned into messing around, making tracks on there, not thinking, I want to finish these or make sure these go on radio.
Sure, yeah, just being creative, having fun.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. It was just that. And then I guess in the end, when I started getting my music out, she was like, oh, do you want to come in the crew? I'm like, oh, yeah, thanks, Mum. Nice
finally,
one. Yeah, exactly.
So what were those early productions sounding like, those
Yeah,
experiments?
you don't want to hear those. I do actually still have these on CD.
Really?
One of the tracks I made on music, actually, on the PlayStation, Music 2000, I think it was made.
Right.
Got played on local radio.
Really? Straight off the PlayStation?
Yeah, mate. Yeah, shout out to
That's
PlayStation.
unheard of.
I mean, I've recorded it straight onto a CD burner.
Right.
So, yeah.
Wow.
It's pretty raw. I couldn't even tell you what the bit rate of that was or anything. Quality can't have been that great, but yeah.
When did you start thinking that maybe this could be a real thing, something that you could do, as work, as something you got money for, as something people would come and see you for?
Yeah, I only ever really produced to sort of. It wasn't until I did a competition. I was working in a care home from like 8 p.m. to 8 a.m., kind of an overnight thing, and I wouldn't really have to do too much. So I would just sit on my laptop. I had to stay awake because, in case there's an emergency or someone wake up or anything.
Right.
So I would just sit and make music all day. And I did a competition remix, and the guy loved it so much that he decided to release it aside of the competition.
Okay.
And then, so it became and I was like getting money, and I was like, wow, I'm making money from music? How does this work? And then that kind of just I just kept making more music, and then people started picking me up in the drum and bass scene because I was a drum and bass producer.
Okay.
And then people started picking me up, and I was getting more releases, more money in, and I was like, what's going on? And then eventually I started playing shows.
And you were still pretty young at this time?
Yeah, I was still 19, 20 years old,
wow.
so yeah, I was very young. So
Talk about the difference, because between the UK and the US, I always think about this. In the UK, my vision of it is sort of this idyllic vision for musical kids where you grow up and on the radio, on BBC, is all this amazing, interesting underground dance music kind of from all over. Whereas in the US, it's very much force-fed top 40 radio, and you have to really dig.
I mean, it's pretty much the same in the UK. We're force-fed pretty heavy by,
Okay.
say, BBC Radio 1 or KISS. They still force-feed it. They're still the biggest stations. There's still 7 stations playing the same tracks.
Right.
But we do have a good steeple in BBC Radio 1 Extra, and they play underground stuff, so it kind of gets the good focus that it deserves. But
Do you think for you, I mean, I guess the fact that you had a DJ mom just negates any of these other questions.
I know, yeah. I hear that a lot, yeah.
Yeah. But so you're 19, you're starting to play some shows, put out some records. Were you touring at this point, like around the UK?
No. I honestly, it was like I was playing local shows with my mum. She sometimes she ran nights, sometimes
Would
she
you
was
open for your mom?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I used to do back-to-backs with my mum and everything.
Incredible.
I know. It's the same reaction I get every time. It's so normal to me, though. It's the weird thing about it. But yeah, whenever I see everyone's reaction, I'm just like, oh yeah, it's actually isn't a normal thing.
Right. Yeah, that's incredible.
But yeah, there was no touring involved. It was all local stuff.
So how did it start to evolve for you? Did you go to university, or did you just keep going with the music thing?
Yeah, I'm completely self-taught. I went to music college. I learned absolutely nothing. Everyone thinks, music college, you got a head start. I did 1 year of B.Tech, which is the lowest form pretty much of, the qualification you can get. I promise you, I learned nothing. It was absolutely rubbish. All I learned was that you don't make money from touring. Like from, say, this guy who used to work at MTV was our teacher.
Really?
He told us that Justin Timberlake used to go on tour and make no money. That's the only thing I learned.
Wow. That's a conflicting message.
Yeah,
right
exactly.
there,
yeah. And then I just self-taught myself after that. So yeah, it's just a long journey of just trial and error, I guess.
When did you start to actually play around the UK, or when did it really feel like it was taking off a bit?
It was only literally when I invented Funtcase. I mean, I was playing shows, D&B shows, but I literally wouldn't be outside of my own hometown.
Okay, so you're just doing local drum and bass shows.
Yeah, exactly.
And were you meeting other DJs, networking a little bit? Did you know anybody at the time?
Not really. I mean, like, now you think about the networking thing and everyone can just get a hold of each other on Twitter.
Right.
But back then, it was like, I felt too scared to even message an artist on, say, MySpace message and ask them what they made their music on. I just felt disrespectful asking someone that, and always thought like, oh, they get asked a million times.
Right.
So like, I couldn't really network. The only network I was getting was that, the scene I was in, like the lower end of the producers or the people who were trying to make it. They sort of, everyone who came in and sort of brought everyone in, but at the time, drum and bass was so tight circled that you couldn't get into drum and bass.
And I have to imagine it was also really competitive at that time.
Yeah, hugely. Yeah. I mean, you could argue probably even more than now, because now there's a million tracks every day being made. But back then, it was much harder to get your tracks out to people.
Right.
So now, like, if one track goes off, you can just find it somewhere on the internet. Back then, like, if a track goes off, you've got to try and track down a producer, find their aim, like the AIM, and just everything like that. So it was a much bigger process.
Yeah, and I think, when it's a smaller scene like back in the day, then there's gatekeepers, right? And just a few people with a lot of power.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
if you don't know them.
If you look at people like Andy C, who had Ram, he was like, the main guy in the middle. Then you had Dillinger, who was doing Valve. And then players with DJ Hype, there was like the main guy in the middle. They'd have their own circle, and then anyone else was just like trying to fight to get in, almost like sperms to a womb. Everyone was like attacking these circles, going "Let me in," but no one would get in. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I guess what I'm trying to drive at with all these questions is: was there ever a point, either a single moment or just an era for you where you felt like it was really taking off and maybe you could come to the next level? It was just when you started dubstep, basically?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. I didn't actually know anything about dubstep. When I was making drum and bass, dubstep was kind of like, it was still underground, but it was like a few people here and there in the drum and bass scene I was in were going to dubstep. So it was kind of like a bit of a bandwagon thing. So if you did it, people would be frowned upon big time. And that's hence why I'm called Funtcase and not my old name,
Oh, sure.
So, I was trying to hide myself from it. But I didn't even like dubstep when I made it. My friend had a radio show. And he went, "Oh, just make me a few tracks for fun." I was like, "Right, why not?" So I just made a few tracks here and there, and I gave them to him, and they were all popping off massively. And it was basically just what I was making drum and bass, but at dubstep speed.
Sure.
And that's kind of like why it went off so much, because dubstep, there wasn't anything like that in dubstep.
And was this around the time when dubstep was just being born, more or less?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I mean, the main front runners at the time were like 16-bit, Bar 9, Joker, Roscoe, Casper, people like that. So it wasn't tight circle. It was open. It was completely open. But there were the main front runners of it.
Right. Yeah, and it was probably I'm sure a new nebulous thing that people didn't know if they should bet on it or not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean it is what it is. You never know if a genre is going to kick off. I've always thought that I know the scene well enough to think that this genre is going to be the next biggest thing, and it just doesn't happen. So
right.
I thought that about Moonbaton at one point.
Sure, yeah.
Everyone was on Moonbaton at one point in America. I thought this is going to be huge, and it just disappeared. And now it's coming back in a tropical house way.
Well, yeah, tropical house, and I mean U.S. pop. I mean, its fingerprints are all over the pop charts now.
I think anything with a bit of a groove and a musicality to it, like tropical house, is almost like a dream to the pop producers.
Sure. Well, and you think about early dubstep, which is, so different from the current form of dubstep. But back then, at least when I was introduced to it, it was so much about the reggae influence. There was sort of a bounce to it.
Yeah, exactly.
And maybe that's why it caught fire so easily back then.
Yeah, it was so fresh and everyone was on it. And that's why even pop artists got on it, I still remember the moment where someone went, Britney Spears has got a dubstep section in their track. And I was like, are you joking?
That's actually, I've talked about that Britney Spears dubstep bridge on this show
really?
before.
Oh, right, yeah. I still, that's like that's the
by
moment I realized, like, okay, this is going to happen now.
Yeah, it's So weird to me that happened.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but I mean, that goes to show the ears on the ground that the majors have. You know,
Right? Yeah.
They've got ears on the ground in every genre. As soon as something kicks off, they're the first people on it.
Yeah. I mean, and it's smart, good looking out on their part. I don't know that they executed it all that well, but
Yeah, they might have killed it off a bit. But
yeah, just a little. I think that probably was a signal for a lot of people when Britney Spears had a dubstep song. It's like, let's move away from this. For a minute.
I mean, to an extent. I mean,
Yeah.
you could. I mean,
Not for the actual producers in the scene.
Yeah. I mean, for dubstep in general. I don't think it was actually the pop side of stuff that killed dubstep. I think it was the overkill of dubstep. It was too much of it everywhere.
Too saturated.
Yeah, way too much of it. They're literally everywhere. You'd have Nero with a massive hit. Breakage had a really big hit, and then there was pop artists doing that left, right, and center. So it was just like there was way too much dubstep. Every show was dubstep. Every festival was dubstep.
Right.
And it just overkilled the whole scene, and that's why it dipped out, I think.
Sure, fair enough. Although, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not fully in the dubstep scene, but I feel like it's having a pretty big resurgence in the last couple of years.
It's most definitely coming in. I mean, like, there was a moment where I was quite worried for the scene, in fact. I knew that, I know every genre has waves. Like, when dubstep came in, drum and bass took a massive hit.
Yeah.
Because it was basically just slower drum and bass.
Right.
So, obviously, you had the core people doing drum and bass, but dubstep came in, drum and bass took a massive hit. And it's the same thing. Like, drum and bass has come way back now. In the UK, it's absolutely huge right now. So, and then dubstep dipped, I'd say 2012, 2013.
Out of the UK.
Yeah, and I mean in the world, when dubstep died in, say, I'm going to say 2011, 2012 in the UK, that's pretty much when it was, on its butt.
Right.
And then America took it on for, from 11 to say 13, but then 13 was the first time I realized that dubstep was in trouble when EDC had one or two genuine dubstep artists on the lineup. When I saw that, I was like, oh, this is not good.
Yeah,
they literally had Excision with Destroyed, and they had Datsik on the lineup, and I think they had 12th Planet. I don't quote me on that, but that's all they had on the whole lineup, and it was like, that was the moment where I was like, okay, this is bad.
Yeah, that's true.
But we're back now, everything's good. So yeah, we just
back in business, baby.
Yeah, we dipped out for a while. We're back.
So talk a little bit about when you first started coming over to the US. What was your perception or expectation, and how did it differ once you actually got here?
Yeah, I didn't really know, to be honest. I'd been playing the UK for 4 years solidly, just playing constantly, 3-4 nights in a row, or I'd play 2 or 3 shows.
Okay,
the same night for 4
really
nights
heavy.
in a row. Yeah, and it was really tough. And then we come to America where you play one show a night and then you travel for 6 hours on a plane.
Right.
That was a bit crazy. But I literally had no idea what to expect with the crowds. I literally didn't know if they would be, if they would take it in, if they'd be party animals, if they were just kind of like, doing their thing.
Were you one of the first in that first wave of UK dubstep artists that started coming over here?
No, I think Dr. P and Flux were the first out of, say, the circus crew
Sure.
that I'm in, that came over. But I think 2011 Escape from Wonderland was the key moment. And I still remember on that lineup, it was people like Subfocus and Brooks Brothers and loads of drum and bass artists. So they were still there. And then it was me and Borgor and, I think a few others. So it wasn't huge. It wasn't an instant impact. It was just like, gradually bringing people over and over when they were ready.
So when you were first coming over to the US, what was the impetus there? Like, did you feel like you were hitting a ceiling in the UK at all? Or was it more just that kind of a new opportunity opened up as dubstep started really picking up over in the US?
I don't know. Now I'm trying to think about it. I never really thought that it was like, the natural crossover where, it was finally dying in the UK and I can go to America. I think it was still really strong in the UK at the time. But now that I think about it, I think dubstep was still doing its thing in the UK. I come to America and I was just kind of like, wow, this is pretty crazy. I'd heard of what Flux and Dr. P had told me about what was going on in America and how it was. They were like, oh, it's bigger. There's lots more going on. It's more of a party. They do more lights, more production. And I was just thinking like all this crazy stuff in my head about how crazy it was.
Right.
So and then I was thrown into the deep end. It's like 10,000 plus people.
Yeah.
In a hangar at Escape from Wonderland, thinking, wow, is this what America's like?
Every show, yeah.
And the crowd were absolutely insane. I've never forgotten that show for the rest of my life. But I was thinking like, oh, this must be every show. And then, not downhill from there, but, the sizes went down.
Oh, yeah, I mean, sometimes you play at Beyond Wonderland and sometimes, you play in Sacramento on a Wednesday.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But it was just a massive shock that I was of that size that I could play such a big show.
Well, how did you link up with, Flux and Dr. P and those guys? How did that relationship come around?
Yeah, that was, I knew Dr. P pretty much only knew Dr. P and the circus crew at the start from drum and bass when he was Picto. I used to speak to him on AIM. I say speak to. I'd send him in tracks and he'd write "lol" back.
Really?
That was it. Yeah, he wouldn't. He was the worst replier I've ever. He wasn't laughing at me. I would just say like, "You're right, mate." He's like, "All right," and then I'd be like, "Oh, how you doing?" He's like, "Lol." He would just literally write that as a reply. Like, so yeah, it's just weird. He was like never really replying, and sometimes you get a conversation out of him. And one day we just got in the conversation about, I've started trying dubstep, and we traded tracks. And he was like, "I'm starting a label called Circus. Do you want to release these?" I was like, "Yeah, right. Why not?"
Yeah, sure.
I didn't really have any other platforms. I had one or two, but I'd already released with them, and I was trying to look into, do what I could.
What was their station in the scene? Were they pretty well known?
No, they were brand new. They
Okay.
hadn't had one release yet.
Oh, wow,
They were
okay.
just like, "Do you want to release this on our label? We're going to try and sort some releases out." I was like,
So
"Yeah,
were
cool."
you the first release on their label?
No, their first release was Air Raid by Flux and Dr. P.
Or I guess I meant first signing outside of them?
Yeah, I actually was the first circus signing. Yeah, but the
Wow.
thing was, I was the first. I don't know if I was what their second. I think their second track was Streets of Rage by Flux and Dr. P or something like that.
Yeah,
and
that
then
sounds
I
right.
think I was 003
Okay.
with So Vexed
Yep.
and Mattress Punch.
I remember those tunes.
Yeah. I think it was 00. So yeah, I think I was the first signing, and then Cookie came short, like maybe 6 months after that.
Okay.
So yeah.
And were those tunes? Did you notice a change in in people's perception of you? Did they blow you up, or was it more of kind of just a gradual?
Yeah, it was a gradual thing. I mean, like I say, Circus was brand new, so there wasn't anything that anyone had anything to latch onto. Like, "Oh wow, Circus!"
Right.
Like, not like you think now. Like Circus is a big thing, but back then, when you're a brand new label, I'd spent my whole drum and bass career giving tunes to brand new labels, and they sort of died on their ass. Can I say that?
Yeah, of course.
Died on their ass. So I just expected the kind of the same thing, to be honest. I was like, "Yeah, you can release them," and then they went, "These tracks are doing really well. Do you want to sign to Circus?" I was like, "Oh God."
Commitment.
And then the 5-year contract came through my
Oh,
door, and I
yeah.
was like, "Oh, okay, this is actually happening." Okay, then. But best decision I've ever made.
Right. Well, and I was thinking about that on the drive over because, Circus is such a strong collective, and I think it's maybe more common over here or just in different scenes for artists to, release an EP with one label, then jump over to another label, do an EP with them. But I think, with Circus and with other labels who kind of have that similar family vibe, really creates this strong identity,
Yeah.
And in the end, I think it benefits everyone who does stick around for those 5 years. you know?
I mean, there's not many people that actually genuinely sign for a label these days.
Right.
They'll be more like the first dibs on the tunes kind of thing.
Right.
So, yeah, we've got a very strong family at Circus. So.
And I assume you're sticking with them for the long run at this
Yeah,
point.
as far as I know. Unless I get an email tomorrow saying, "By the way, you suck and we're getting rid of you." So, yeah.
Well, and you're even almost doing your own sub-label over there, right?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, it's Circus Release It, but it's a compilation that I'm
And that's
hosting.
DPMO?
DPMO, yeah.
How did that come about?
That was a culmination of me sort of being frustrated with all these amazing dub plates I had that no one was releasing.
Right.
And I was playing in my sets, and they were all going off, and I was constantly telling Circus, like, "Look, I've got these tracks, these are sick," and they'd sign some bits, some bits they wouldn't. I was trying to get them to sign Genetics at one point, and I guess in the end they just went, "Look, we'll just give you your own project."
Just shut him up, give him a...
Yeah, exactly. So here I am.
Well, I think I just got, maybe even today, this week, I feel like I got the promo for the... whatever, is it volume 2?
Volume 1, yeah.
Or volume 1.
Yeah, it's the first one, yeah.
Yeah, and it's great, man. I was impressed.
Yeah, it's literally a culmination of all the tracks that went off in my set and just tracks that I really love myself. But yeah, it's mainly a sort of, hand-picked selection of all the best of the best what I play live.
So what was the reaction from you and from, your compatriots in the UK scene when dubstep kind of started really blowing up over in the States? Because, I mean, the U.S. has a long history of kind of stealing from you guys, to put it one way.
Yeah, kind of.
But, of course, when it comes over here, it kind of turns into its own beast. Were people stoked about it? Were people mad about it? What was the
In the
general...
UK?
Yeah.
I didn't really speak to too many people. People were just more, they were more curious about what America was like. They were asking me, "Is it good? Is it bad?
Right.
How are the crowds? How's everything?" So yeah, there was no like, "Oh, you're going to America?"
Well, I guess I meant from the producers and from the DJs who had started the sound and the scene to kind of see their baby go off.
Yeah, I mean, I think they'd already been to America,
Right.
or they were going there at the same time as me. So yeah, I think from that standpoint, they already knew what it was like.
Were U.S. producers embraced generally? Once it really started taking on a life.
That's
of its
the
own?
$1 million question, because the first main American guy to really make it. Again, people might argue this, but Skrillex obviously was probably the guy that really shone from the American market.
He's the guy I was
I mean,
thinking about.
we had Excision and Datsik,
Right.
and Downlink, and they were already around, but they're from Canada.
Right.
And then you had other artists, Number 9, and loads of other people like that who I used to speak to years ago.
Sure, yeah.
They were doing their thing, but they never blew up. Excision, Datsik, and Downlink done their thing, and they were known in the scene, but they're from Canada. But as far as American goes, like, you could probably say that Skrillex is the first. I might get brutally attacked for saying that, but it's literally, I think.
Well, I
how
mean,
it
he's
is.
the guy who brought it to the mainstream in the U.S. I don't think you can argue that.
No, of course not.
And what from you guys, was that an exciting thing to see? Was it annoying that the originators weren't getting the same level of attention?
I don't know. I mean, think about any scene. Has any originators really been the forefront? Like,
Generally, no.
there's always someone who comes and does it better, and that's just how life is in music. Really, there's always
Right.
going to be someone better than you.
So I mean, did you feel competitive? Did it kind of inspire you to work harder?
I don't
to
know.
see him
I
do
mean,
that?
I mean, you can probably hear from the scene itself how much of an impact he made. Everyone was trying to sound like him.
Yeah.
Because it was so big, and everyone was like, "Oh wow, look at this."
Yeah, and I mean, no one else sounded like him at the time.
I mean, they tried.
well, yeah,
They
tried,
and
really
people still
hard.
try now. But,
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, no, it is what it is. But it's not. Yeah, I don't think it was a negative impact on Skrillex coming into the scene. I think a lot of people embraced it.
Sure, like kind of a rising tide raises all boats.
Yeah, I
kind
mean,
of thing.
it was just like dubstep hadn't really properly taken off for many years. So Skrillex was kind of the main reason that dubstep is such a steeple scene now in a group of scenes.
Sure,
It
and
could have
I mean,
easily fallen out of and not been in there.
Right. And I guess, in a way, even the originator, if there are some originators who might have felt a way about it, at least, that probably opened up new markets for them. They could travel and tour and
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know. I think people should embrace what Skrillex did. A lot of people hate on him because he's the commercial side and all that stuff. But
Right.
he literally made dubstep.
Yeah.
There's you got the originators, but then you got the people that made dubstep.
Right.
There's the people that brought it to the people and now made it.
Yeah. Well, and
One of the main genres. That's it.
and he's like the nicest guy in
Yeah,
the world.
and I'm really glad about that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And very inclusive, and you can tell he's not just trying to make a buck, obviously. Like, he's really passionate.
Well,
about
I mean,
what he's doing.
who would have thought coming in making like really musical intros and then just doing that angriest drop? Like, it's almost like a metal band, He was in from first to last, and he did the same thing. He had a really musical section, and he would go straight into re-angry bit, kind of like emo bands or whatever.
Sure, yeah.
No one thought of that in dubstep. He brought it in. He brought that in because that's what he loved to do. He didn't do that because he thought that's what will sell.
Right.
And he exploded, and good for him. Perfect. Yeah, he's a genius.
Did you have any early interactions with him?
No,
How
I-
did you get to know him?
I don't know him too well. He's approached me on Twitter DM a few times and told me he's a fan of mine. So
Sure.
as you can imagine, I fell off my chair a few times as I wrote that. But yeah, he's always been like a fan of my music, and he's always played my music out without telling me. I've always had videos sent to me like, "Oh, I'm at Coachella," and he's played Squid Attack remix back in 2011.
Right.
And I'm like, holy moly, this is happening. But yeah,
big level.
he's really good. I've only ever really properly met him at one festival, and that was literally me shaking his hand while I was on stage, and he was behind me watching. So
But even from that, I mean, he's just the most open, friendly guy. He's like the kind of guy that you're happy to see succeeding.
yeah,
you know?
exactly, yeah.
Which is nice.
Yeah, I always feel like that. There's too many people who I don't like who are making it. So I'm glad he is.
List them all now.
Oh God, you haven't got the time.
After you've started touring the U.S. and you're getting your bearings out here, you're playing some big shows, doing some big tours. You mentioned that around 2013 you started to see dubstep maybe taking a hit or trailing off a bit.
Yeah.
What were some of those other than Britney Spears? What were some of those warning signs, or when did you know that something might have to be done?
It was a culmination of, say, a dip in the amount of gigs I got. around, say, the UK. That was the first indicator, because the UK is kind of like, the first people.
Yeah, that's the barometer, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
If something happens in the UK, we'll probably see the effects in the US a year later.
Precisely. So things started to dip, I guess, in the UK. I don't really remember too much of it because I was lucky that America took me on at that point.
Right.
Otherwise, I might be working a 9 to 5 at the moment.
Sure. Yeah.
It was a combination of, I guess, that and just seeing the festivals that we'd usually take on the dubstep artists, not put them on there. Like I say, EDC not having on there was such a big thing for me. I'd see the lineup and go, wow, how have they not actually got any dubstep on there? They've got like 2 or 3 artists. It's crazy. When, previous years they would have had 10, if not more, overground and underground on there. So
well, and so as a touring artist at that time, as a fairly well-known dubstep producer at that time, what happened to you? I mean, did you also take a break? Did you fall back, or did you just keep putting out releases and understanding that everything's cyclical and that it would come back around?
It was a weird timing for me because I was in a weird crossover where there was so much of that American sounding Skrillexy dubstep, and I was kind of sick of it.
Sure.
I was really sick of it, and I was losing the influence I had in the scene and what I could make, and I wasn't really making a lot of music, really, to be honest.
Yeah, that saturation point you were talking about.
Yeah,
earlier.
and it was hard to just get any ideas, because the first thing that would come to my head is the sort of Skrillexy stuff, and I just really didn't want that. I wasn't that artist.
Right. Well, and I think for any artist, if you go into it trying to make a song like another artist, we're all inspired by each other. Of course, there's some bleed over, material, but if that's your intention, I think you're in trouble.
You're in for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
So I was in I was in a bad place in my mind musically, with production wise, and I wasn't really making a lot of anything. I would. Here and there, I'd start maybe a pop idea, and then I'd make a drum and bass track, and then for some reason I'd make a jazz track. Because I played drums and guitar and everything as well, so I just mess around, and I wasn't really making a lot. So there was a moment where I really didn't have any original releases for say a year or two.
Yeah.
And I had one collab out with Eptic.
Right.
And it was just because I was so uninspired by what was going on in the scene that it just kind of killed my vibe and the whole thing, really. And then when things started picking up, I picked up with it, and that whole 2 years was pretty much. I spent the whole time learning more about production and how to make myself better as a producer.
Okay.
So it was more like, night and day when you play one of my older tracks and you played the track that came out between that, before and after that 2-year period. It was such a big production jump.
Sure. I mean, sort of like what we were talking about earlier about playing older music next to...
Yeah, exactly. It was kind of the same thing, really. I mean, I had a style, and I guess I stuck to it, but production just went up.
Sure.
And that's what I wanted, because I never felt like I was good enough in the scene.
What, is that right?
Because, as soon as Skrillex came along, he just superseded everyone with anything he ever made.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, my production still isn't really where I want it to be at all in any way. I'm constantly stressing over how mine sounds over, say, the next guy's.
Sure, yeah, and that's an easy game to fall into. I do that constantly. You can be so excited about something you've been working on for a week, and then you hear just one piece of somebody else's song.
It's usually Noisier for me, to be honest.
Yeah.
Anything by Noisier or Moody Good.
Yeah, I mean, those are kind of the bellwether artists, right? I mean, those ones, at least for me, I've categorized in this category that I'll just never be that. So I don't even worry about them.
I just go and watch Noisier and I just cry the whole time. I hate myself. I mean, it's usually like I usually spend a lot of my day thinking about production. Like, oh yeah, if I do a snare this way, if I had this kind of layer, it'll be fine. And then I'll go and do it, and it doesn't work out. But sometimes I'll analyze a track in my head of, say, what Noisier did. I'll be like, all right, okay, there's a low mid harmonic in there. I'll add that in my track, and I'll do it, and they'll be like, it doesn't sound right at all.
Right.
And you just go through the motions, and I'm still doing that now, but it's just that. But I think that's good, because it's to strive to be better. Is what you do, what you should be doing.
Is that a lot of the fun for you? Is the sort of technical production side of the DJ game?
I've definitely become more of a guy who enjoys. I mean, I've done a few mixdowns for other people, and I've enjoyed doing that more than making my own music.
Really?
Because I don't know, I just got more into doing production.
Yeah. Well, sometimes that can be really fun. I mean, I've done that a little bit, but even if you think about just collaborating with other artists on a song, sometimes when you let the control go a little bit, or if you're mixing somebody else's project, there's constraints to it. It's, all you have to do is take what's already there and just make it better, as opposed to really putting it on yourself.
Yeah.
To create.
Finding the layers and then adding this and adding that, and then, EQing those accordingly, giving them their own space, instead of just going, oh, I'll just make this sound better.
Right. Yeah, that can be really rewarding to just do those tasks and do them well.
Yeah.
For you, do you think this is a terrible question, but if you had to pick, between live shows and studio Does one bring you more value? Do you enjoy one more than the other?
Probably say live is better for me. I mean,
Yeah.
I want to be an amazing producer. I'm just not going to be noisier. But,
Right.
but you know, I'm a full focused entertainment guy on stage. So,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I'm trying to hone that into a thing.
Well, sure, and we haven't even talked about that yet. And I'm sure you have to talk about this every single time you mention yourself. But we should at least briefly cover the mask.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
That was literally around the time that I was like making dubstep for fun.
Right.
Actually, my first profile pictures was literally just me in a hat and a hood up.
Sure.
I didn't actually have a mask, so my first ones were
It
just
sounds like every other dubstep.
yeah. But I was like looking down, so you couldn't see my face, and the shadow hided my face, so
Okay.
or hid my face, sorry. And then so that there wasn't even a mask at that point. And
Right.
then the day before my first ever show, I was a graffiti artist, and I was doing graffiti at an event called Summer Ball, the University Summer Ball, and you had to dress up for it. So I had this whole suit, and it was like a big silver suit which I bought from a supermarket, some cheap one.
Right.
It was meant for 9-year-olds, but it fit me. Absolutely crazy. And then so I was wearing that, and I was doing spraying, and then the next day I played my first show in the second room of his club to 5 people. Well, 7 people, 5 of them were my own mates.
Sure.
And one of my friends was, as I was getting my CDs out, he noticed I left the mask in the bag by accident.
Okay.
And he went, "Wear that, go on, I dare you." And I was like, don't be stupid. He managed to convince me to wear it, and well, that's not my thing now. So,
Wow.
yeah, thanks, Blake.
So, I mean, after you wear it the first time as a joke, what's the thought to put it on the second time?
You know, I've tried to think that. I don't remember anything after that.
Huh.
It's just kind of ended up being my thing.
Yeah, just stuck with you.
Yeah, I don't remember my second or third shows. I just wore a mask, I must have just carried on doing it.
Yeah. Well, if you grew up listening to Slipknot and
yeah,
similar things, maybe
exactly.
there was
Slipknot, Mushroom Head, all those guys who
Right.
used to wear masks or do face paint.
Is it similar with your mask? The Slipknot guys always talk about how uncomfortable it is to perform with it. Is yours the same way?
Yes and no. I mean, it's more. It doesn't let my skin breathe that well.
Is yours? It's a cloth mask.
Yeah, it's kind of made of like clothy. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't really know.
I mean, are you at the point where like you actually have the mask made for you now?
No, not yet. We've tried that for the last 2-3 years, but the company we actually finally got the ball rolling with making these masks. They were a movie studio. It's called Pinewood Studios. They do
Yeah.
like E.T. and James Bond, Harry
wow.
Potter all there. And we went there, got everything done. They made a prototype, so I have a prototype of it, and it was wrong. So I sent an email to my manager saying it's wrong. Here's the adjustments. They sent the email out to the people that did it, and then we got nothing back.
Okay.
So they were hitting them up constantly, and then eventually we found out that they just disappeared. So they quit working
Oh,
at
wow.
Pinewood, and they disappeared. We had no contacts for them. So I've just got this wrong-looking prototype mask, which I can't really wear because
Right.
it looks a bit ridiculous.
So for you wearing the mask on stage at this point, I mean, obviously it's part of your brand. It's who your fans identify as you. But I'm interested in the idea of mass and performance. Performance with mass, I mean, goes back thousands of years in human history. And for you, when you have it on, do you feel differently when you're performing?
Yeah, I've had a few shows where I've either forgot the mask or it's been stolen, and I've had to try and get one sent back to me.
Oh, wow.
Like for when I was on the Danzig tour in 2013. Someone stole my mask backstage, and I
Right.
had no mask for like 4 or 5 days. I had to go tell the circus to send me the one they had.
Sure.
Luckily, they had as a spare, so I had to play 5 shows with my mask on, and I just felt naked.
Yeah.
Kind of feel it's not. You don't feel invincible. You just kind of feel like there's a bit of a shield over you, like a theoretical shield.
Sure.
Where you can just do whatever the hell you want to do.
Do you feel like it's almost a persona, like a different?
Oh yeah, it totally is. I mean,
different
like
version of
if you
you?
look at Funtcase on stage, he does all this crazy stuff. He beats his chest in anger. He shouts at people.
Right.
He's going nuts, and then I'm like chilled out.
Yeah.
A bit bubbly, but it's not like I'm completely nothing like Funtcase.
When you're even talking about him in the third person.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. It's like because I have to like 10 minutes before my show, I put the mask on. I kind of have to zone into him. Like,
Sure.
It's kind of weird. I just can't just focus. I don't like get angry or anything. I'm
Right.
just sort of like I've got the mask on. Right, let's get going.
Yeah.
Kind of like actors, I guess, in a way.
Sure, yeah, method acting or something like that. And for me too, I'm fairly hyper on stage too in a way that surprises people if they haven't seen me play before.
Yeah.
And for me, it's a release, and for me, I think I'm kind of maybe a repressed person a little bit, but definitely just kind of a low key, non-emotional kind of person when
Yeah.
I'm just everyday life. But then getting up there, it's weird. It's like I feel more like myself up there. I don't know if it's the same for you or what you get out of it.
I mean, kind of. I mean, when I was younger, I had too much energy. I was
Yeah.
bouncing around. I was saying whatever was on my mind when I shouldn't have. I was just like, but I was just like going crazy, doing whatever with the amount of energy I got. And as I grew up, the energy sort of sapped out. But could that be because of Funtcase, because of what I do on stage?
Yeah, maybe you found a channel for it.
Yeah,
an
exactly.
outlet
So
for
who
it.
knows? But yeah, I've had the high energy and bounciness to me, but it's as you grow older, you get a bit more
Right.
You get a bit more sluggish. It's just like I'm getting there. So yeah.
Yeah, of course.
But I mean, I still get to channel out anything I've got with Funtcase. If I have any anger or anything, I put it into music, or I guess put it out as Funtcase.
Sure.
I bottle up my emotion pretty much all the time. So
Yeah.
I guess is I do it on stage.
Yeah. For me, it's a release for sure, and I'm sure it is for lots of other people too.
Yeah.
Especially us, like quiet nerds, who,
Yeah, it is. Yeah, exactly.
are stuck inside by ourselves most of the time.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. What a paradise our job is.
Right. Yeah. Hey man, I would never complain. But so are you? You talked a little bit about trying to sort of build the Funtcase image or character into more of a full-fledged thing. Is that a goal moving forwards?
Yeah, I mean, like I say, I started off not caring about the idea of a mask, just wearing it. But now that obviously it's my image, I'm gonna do what I can to hone it and explode it into a thing. Because why
Sure.
not? Why not? I'm not trying to make the mask the fuel focus.
Right,
It's
right.
part of my show.
Yeah.
It's not. I don't rely on the mask, but I'm gonna feature it. And I'm going to build around it,
Absolutely.
because I'm lucky to have that as my thing, without being laughed at. I'm one of the guys
Right.
that started doing it.
I was thinking about that too. There's nowadays there's more mass DJs than there used to be. And especially I think in 2017, if you're a new DJ and you put on a mask, I mean, you'll get laughed out
Cliche,
of the room.
exactly, cliche. But I mean, even back then when I started doing it was kind of the same thing.
Did you
Everyone's
get
like,
some shit
why
back
are you
then?
wearing a mask? Just because not many people wore one,
Sure.
Especially not in dubstep. There was only Stenchman before me.
Right.
And people always say that they think I'm like the pioneer of wearing masks. No. Stenchman all day. I will shout his name all day.
Right.
But he's not flying the flag anymore, and I'm kind of like the main guy with it now.
Yeah. Well, in the UK, did you feel judged at all? Because I think the UK, my perception of music, the scene in the UK is that it's just a little more chilled out, a little classier, a little more reserved.
No, I wouldn't say classier. I mean,
No?
like the difference in say the UK and the US when you go to a show is that the US, everyone's very together and they're all about partying together and having a good time. The UK is more about what they're enjoying the music and being very to themselves. Like you go to the UK and no one stares at the DJ. You're playing in the USA and everyone's going crazy, but they're watching the DJ.
Right.
In the UK, everyone sort of turns into their own little monster and
Sure.
they sort of dance to themselves. It's very very different. It's very
Yeah.
underground. They don't blow up DJs like they're gods like in America does. Like UK are kind of not dismissive, but they're a bit like meh.
Yeah. Not impressed.
Yeah, I mean you get the obvious ones, people that do it,
Right.
but there's no massive thing with it.
So when you put on this persona, did you get any backlash in the UK?
Surprisingly not, no.
Really?
Not that I remember. I would probably remember.
I
that.
mean, maybe you were just one of the first. Maybe people were so amazed by it if you were one of the first people to do it.
Yeah, I mean, now that I think about it, because MySpace back then was the thing. Whenever you went to go find music, you go to MySpace, and my MySpace picture was me wearing a mask. So I guess you got accustomed to that instantly. If you had any problem with it, you'd be like, "Why is he wearing a mask?" But looking at my profile picture, and then when you got into my music, eventually you'd just be like, "Oh, right, cool, guy with a mask."
Right.
So yeah.
And it's you as you said, it's a piece of your arsenal, right? It's part of your show.
Yeah.
And to me, it's such a unique, like valuable part of it. And I think maybe that doesn't. People will look at DJs who wear a mask or DJs who do some other part of their show that some people don't like. I don't even know what people say. I don't hang out with those people. But
Yeah.
for me, I always like seeing it because anything we can do, at the end of the day, DJing is not as visually engaging as watching a band play a song.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so anything we can do to make it interesting is great. But then after that, anything we can do to stand out. So it's, now everyone has whatever, an LED wall, or everyone has a CO2 cannon, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And even that is starting to feel like it all looks the same.
Yeah, I mean, what can you do?
It is to me,
What
yeah.
can you do, I mean, Skrillex kind of started the whole building a stage thing with the spaceship.
Right.
And then, obviously Excision has the Paradox. And
Yeah.
Whatever he had before that, Datsik had the Vortex.
Yeah. To me, Excision is the one really just taking it as extreme as it can possibly
Yeah,
go.
and
right
I think
now.
that's a good thing because he's that's using to his advantage because someone will put up a video on their Facebook, and it will go viral. Everyone will
Right.
be like, holy crap, there's a massive LED wall with a fucking movie playing while he's playing.
Yeah. So, I mean, where do we go from here in terms of putting on a show, in terms of production? Where do you go, as Funtcase? Do you have goals for, I mean, this is your first big headline tour we were talking about at the beginning of the show.
Yeah.
So, where does it go from here? Any predictions? Anything you've seen?
It's a good question, really. I mean, we're discussing that with management because we want to take it. We want to take it to the next level. Obviously,
Right.
I've been trying to do it for years, and I've finally got my first tour. So this is the beginning of what I want to achieve.
Yeah.
But, I've never really properly tried to take it, to a huge level or anything like that. I've never just kind of been me and just tried to see what happened. But
Right.
now my management are seeing that it's finally going well. Doing what I've done,
Right.
and we're going to build around it. So I don't know. I mean, a new mask will have to happen, I guess, because I've only got one left. they don't exist anymore.
Right.
So.
You got the backup one from Circus.
Yeah, exactly. That's the one I'm using now. So that's like kind of, if I lose that, I'll have to start wearing really cheap plastic ones.
Yeah, right. Man, the things that mask is seeing.
Yeah, tell you about it. And then I don't know. Just I've got plans. I've got plans how I want to build up my show. I mean, if we ever have to take it to a sort of commercial level where we have to involve visuals or anything like that, I've got a few ideas. I want to in a standout way, not in a let's put a visual wall behind me. I've got a general concept how I want to build around me, not put things to add to. Not things in your peripheral.
Yep.
Like you're concentrated on me, but there's things going on that's going to make it an epic show. So
Yeah.
that's my plan. I want to try and hone that. And eventually, if I get bigger and get the the fees from the shows to be able to fund it, because obviously that's how it works.
Yeah.
I don't know if everyone thinks that promoters pay for that. But
Right, yeah.
we pay for that.
Yeah, that's an important thing that actually hasn't come up too much on this show is how much you have to invest back into yourself.
Damn right.
Because people know that DJs get paid a lot of money to perform, which we do, and I'm happy and grateful for that fact.
Totally, yeah.
But so much of it has to go back into your own project.
And that's what I learned from going to college. When he said Justin Timberlake makes no money on touring, I went, come on, mate, you must be on about 200 grand a show.
Right.
100 grand went on production. You got to pay the management agencies and all that, and he comes out with 10 grand, and I'm like, wow.
Right, yeah, he's paying dancers.
Yeah, exactly.
He's got 10 buses.
Exactly, that's what I mean. I didn't realize that everything was. And in my mind at that time, I thought, well, promoters are paying for that. They want him to play, they'll pay for that.
Right.
Nah, mate. And I found out how much buses cost a month, and I'm like, holy moly!
Right.
I can probably fund it if I want no money, literally no money at the end of it.
Right.
So it's only the best paid artists who can come home with a little bit of money can afford a bus, unless you're way bigger. But
Yeah. It's just all the side expenses, man.
it's totally nuts. I mean, people don't think about it. People probably don't care at the same time. A lot of people have pre-notions that they've got very set in their brain. They're kind of pretty almost admittedly like I used to have. But
yeah,
man. I mean, if you get into music, guys, expect no money.
and that's true even at high levels.
Yeah, exactly. I know some of the fees that some of the artists get and what they walk home with, and it absolutely blows my mind.
Right.
Honestly, so it's just when people take their cuts on the side.
Right, it's a crazy business because the bigger you get, the bigger team you need, the more people take cuts of the profits.
You look at your favorite artist, and he's probably got 2 managers, 2 tour managers, people on the side. They might even have some sort of branding coordinator, just a million people to pay 10%, 5%, 15%, 20%.
PR,
Mate, honestly, it's just like I say, I've learned this over the years, and to think that people like Skrillex, you'll be like, oh wow, he got 250 grand in Australia. I actually heard that. So he got paid $250,000 for a show in Australia.
Sure.
And I'm thinking he probably took home about 40 of that. I'm not even joking. And people will be like, wow, he's 4 shows, he's got $1 million. Nah, mate, 4 shows, he's got about 100 grand.
Right.
Obviously, that's insane money. Insane money. But in the grand scheme of things, that is absolutely nothing compared to what he could have.
Absolutely. And, if you drill down from that level, because we're all, there's like a perception that I think most DJs try to put out that we're rock stars, we're killing it all the time, 24/7.
Yeah.
And, the reality is, especially for a lot of the mid-level guys, the people who aren't Skrillex, some of those guys whose fans probably think they're the biggest star in the world, they're just scraping by.
Yeah, most definitely.
It's a rough business.
There's shows where we don't have to take too much of a cut off. If we play like a festival and then we don't have anyone involved in it, we're fine.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there's the cuts, the agencies, the managers, all that stuff. But
When you were just starting off, was there a time where you were worried about the money coming in from music and not sure if you'd be able to make it work?
I never really thought about it. I remember the day I was told that I was signed to the Circus agency, which is called Maximum Boost. Dr. P said, by the way, you're going to be signed to our agency. Go send the guy an email. I was like, okay.
I like the way this guy does business.
Yeah, exactly. And I awkwardly sent him hi. So apparently you're my agent. And
Right.
I featured everyone in it. Everyone just wrote lol back because obviously it's like the most unprofessional like email. Crazy moment where everything started happening.
Yeah. And so, just to wrap it all up, in 2017, dubstep's back bigger than ever.
Yeah, definitely.
You're out here doing, one of your biggest U.S. tours to date.
Finally.
Yeah. Took a while.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are quite surprised by that, actually. I was reading blogs about it. They were trying to promote the tour, and they were like, Funcase's first headline tour. Like, at least 3 of them wrote in brackets, I know. Like, just to say,
Right.
like, what, really?
Yeah. Well, maybe just because you've been in the U.S. for so long, people had assumed.
It's easy to assume that, if I've been coming here so long and I'm at a level that I can do tours, and it just doesn't work out like that, It's a combination of agencies saying, well, the numbers are actually, very consistent now.
Right.
I could do 5,000 people sell out on myself in one club and then go to another club and there's 8 people.
Right.
And that wouldn't constitute a tour. The tour's
Sure.
got to be solid numbers in the grand.
Right. When we've talked mostly about the UK and the US, but certainly in Australia, there's a lot of other hot markets for it now too. What's next for you? What's coming up as far as music, as far as career? What comes after the tour?
I think right now I've got a whole bunch of collabs I'm going to try and finish up because there's a lot of artists I'm really enjoying the sound of. So I thought, why not jump on, put my stamp on it, see if we can make something big. Like I did with Virtual Riot.
Yeah.
We're kind of very separate in the way we sound, but it worked. I stamped my edge onto his amazing production ability,
Right.
and we made a really good track. So I'm kind of want to do that with a lot of artists right now.
Cool,
There's a lot
man.
of artists that are not that well known, but I really enjoy their sound. Why not help bring them up and do a collab with them? I get a cool track, and they get to come up. So.
Yeah, and that goes back to the DPMO sub label. I don't know what to call it.
Compilation for now.
Yeah.
But then I guess I'm going to do as much music as I can for the rest of the year and try and get more out, put my stamp my mark, and then I've got to do a Snails tour on a tour bus.
Oh yeah, that'll be big.
Second half of December.
That'll be really big. I was just talking to Fred about a couple months ago when he was setting that tour up. He's so excited.
Yeah, I know.
He's like
Yeah,
a little
same.
kid.
Yeah, oh yeah, I would be too. Yeah, I mean, I still dream of the time where I can afford to have a bus on my tour.
Right.
But right now I'm doing flights and I'm very tired. Feel pity for me, guys, please. It's funny because I always explain it when people always say, "Oh wow, you must be a millionaire. Your life must be amazing." I'm thinking like, well, if I'm a millionaire, go speak to Calvin Harris.
Right.
That guy's a millionaire.
Yeah.
But it's, whenever I say, "Oh, I'm really tired," they must be like, "Wow, but you're touring America." I'm like, "Yeah, well, I leave the club at 4 a.m. and I'm on a flight at 8 a.m. Every day." So
it's different levels, man.
I'm not complaining. People are going to be listening to this going, "Shut up, James." But no, seriously, I'm loving life right now, but my eyes are twitching. Let's put it that way.
100%. That's how we all operate, man.
Yeah. And I don't even drink at shows. Like I'm completely sober. So,
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, completely sober in every way.
Yeah.
So like I'm as fresh as I can be as a person, but I'm still still hanging out of my ass.
Yeah.
At the same time. So yeah.
I think I barely drink. I don't do drugs, any of that. And I look at people who do, and I can't imagine how they're living.
Yeah, I mean, I've toured with people who do a lot of drugs and
As
drink,
have I,
and
yeah.
I watch it, and I'm just like, how are you alive right now? I feel like crap, and I don't do anything.
I think it's genetic, maybe. I think some people are built for it.
I think people just get, they do drugs over a certain amount of time, and it's almost like their body gets accustomed to it.
Right.
It's just like, not me, mate. No way.
Yeah, you're probably right about that. Well, just to wrap it up, I ask a question at the end of every show, and it's totally random. You don't have to think about it too hard, but just first thing that pops into your mind, when's a time in your life, a memory, a moment when music really affected you, kind of caught you up in the moment? It could be, gave you goosebumps. It could be changed the way you thought about something. Really, just first thing that pops into your mind. It could be from 20 years ago, it could be from yesterday.
I know the exact moment, to be
All right.
honest. I know it because I was explained it before, but it was the moment where I was an early teen, 12, 13, just liking whatever at the time, listening. My first compilation I ever bought was the Big Willy style album.
Ooh, strong.
On tape. I saved up for a while for that one.
Strong
Did
choice.
quite a lot of housework for that.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the moment. The moment was when I was watching Ace Ventura.
Oh, yeah.
And in the first one, he's walking through the club and everyone's headbanging to a band. And
Right.
that band was Cannibal Corpse.
Right, it was. Holy
and that,
shit.
And that band, I went, what is this music? And I watched the credits constantly all the way through. I watched the whole credits to find out who they were. And I found out who they were. And that was the moment where I absolutely dedicated my life to listening to everything they'd ever done.
Wow.
Buying all their merch. Literally, that was the exact moment. And I still remember that so plain today.
Holy shit. That might be the best answer I've ever gotten.
Yeah, and that's why that sparked my whole death metal phase for a while and shaped me as a person.
Right.
And then I guess the vibe on the music I was listening to then, was why I liked drum and bass, because the energy, and then dubstep.
And I think it completely carries over into your production and your DJing as well.
I think it's the same for a lot of artists, like Borgore and everyone. Most people in dubstep likes metal.
Yeah, it's true. But I think for you, coming from the UK, being one of the early adopters of dubstep, especially for people who brought it over to the US, you're always someone who I associated with that sound, and it doesn't surprise me to hear that you have a metal background. And it's just cool to see you out here really repping for that sound, man. I like it when an artist, hones in on that signature, that personality.
Yeah, it's really hard to maintain such an overground level, Right. I mean, Skrillex is an underground sound, but he has much more of a commercial appeal to what he does.
Right, and he goes and makes 8 different styles of music, and it's all Skrillex.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, when you think about doing what I do, which is the very angry, aggressive stuff, it's the hardest part of the genre in the world to bring up and make more of an overground, because not everyone, it's not for everyone.
Right.
So someone like Excision, for instance, has only ever really made heavy bangers, and he's made it, and I'm really glad, because that's really good for our scene to see that someone of that style isn't, when majors are saying, you have to put more musicality into your tracks,
right.
You need a singer here, all the bits that sells the stuff. When you have someone like Excision who is killing it, and he's doing underground sound, it's really good for people like myself who can carry on doing what I have to do without compromising. Because
do you feel a responsibility to kind of carry that torch for the underground?
In a sense, I mean, like, it's just, I have my own sound and I like to bring my own sound, but I've only ever been me, and that's what's really not carried me into the big time, because I could have put a singer on a track, or I could have done this and that. I've been in meetings where they said, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to be the next step, and I've not done it. And I'm glad that it's finally, starting to take off and do what I want it to do.
Yeah,
me.
I think that's a great way to put a point on the end of the sentence. Is we've been talking this whole time about how you've stuck to your guns, and how there were peaks and valleys, and it maybe took longer than you wanted, but here we are. You're doing your headline tour and just doing exactly what the fuck you want.
Yeah, I'm so stoked, because I don't want to compromise. I want to be me, and I want people to enjoy what I do. So Godspeed.
100%, man. I couldn't say it any better than that. Well, thanks for sitting down and doing this with me, man.
Yeah,
It's really fun to get to know you.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. All right. Peace out. All right, that's the show. I want to thank Funtcase so much for having me over, sitting down in LA. It was great to get to know you, man. What a crazy ride. What a interesting story. Your mom is a fucking DJ, man. That's so cool. Don't forget to check out Funtcase's DPMO series, releasing on Circus Records. The first edition, the first volume, is already out. I think volume 2 is coming very soon. Hand-curated, all dub plates. I got these promos. They're really good. And I'm not always a dubstep guy, so for me to say that, it's good. I hope you guys enjoyed this too. My name is Willy Joy. You can hit me up on all social media at Willy Joy. You can email me at backtobackpod@gmail.com. Send me your thoughts, your questions, your comments, your concerns. Happy Halloween. Send me a picture of you in your costume. Tweet it to me. Send me something. I love talking to you guys. Don't forget to go check me out on the EDM Prod podcast this week. edmprod.com/podcast. And if you guys just can't get enough of me rambling, then that is the place for you. We had a great conversation, and that's it. I'll see you guys next Tuesday. This is Willy Joy for Back to Back. Peace.